Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and we are back at Rejuvenate Edition 2. And today I've got two fantastic guests, fantastic friends, and friends that I've made on Clubhouse.
Woo!
First of all, we have got Patrick Mabilog from the Philippines and Chevonne, who is representing Malaysia in the blue corner. Oh no, sorry, in the red corner. Jokes aside, welcome.
Hey, Chevonne.
Okay.
Hey, Andrew.
That wasn't a joke.
Oh, okay. So you were joking so much earlier, so it's like all of a sudden we're serious. Hey, good evening, everyone.
I mean, at the end of the day, we are gonna be talking about, how happy are you? So I might as well be happy from the get-go, right?
Yeah, sounds good.
In any case, Patrick, I've already introduced you. You are from the Philippines, and you are a book author. You are a speaker. You are a virtual business consultant. I see you play the guitar. Eric Clapton. Multi-talented, multifaceted. Patrick, as the guest today in this session, we will let you kickstart and let you introduce yourself, please.
Sounds good. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much, Andrew, and for the whole Rejuvenate Synapse team for having us and having me today. Such an honor. My name is Patrick Mabilog. I'm from a small island in the Philippines called Negros, and we are the land of barbecue chicken. So greetings from all the oiliness. But I'm a virtual business consultant, so I help companies shift to online, and more specifically on the people side. So our consultancy, which I do with my wife, is called Block 10 Creative Strategy. We help companies develop virtual operations and figure out how they can build good cultures with virtual teams, build accountability. On top of that, I also have a day job. So I work as the chief people officer of an e-commerce company that focuses mostly on financial literacy in the Philippines. So we help Filipinos become wealthy and debt-free. That is our mission. That's our mantra. I'm also a homeschooler, father of two, and husband to one wife, thankfully.
Fantastic. And I just want to quickly touch on when you said digital literacy, are those programs for adults or are they for school kids, or it cuts across all age?
It cuts across, but mostly right now we focus a lot on young professionals, especially those who are just entering into the workforce. So in the Philippines, I guess I can speak for our context, because we're not, a very wealthy nation. Many times people feel like they don't have the capacity to save, to prepare for retirement, and so we basically try to provide them all the financial education tools, online courses, books, trainings, mostly through our CEO, Chiquitan. He's like the Dave Ramsey of the Philippines. So he focuses a lot on teaching people how to save, how to build good budgeting and investing practices. So yeah, I mean that really cuts across the board. But we also mostly speak as well to a lot of overseas Filipino workers, since these are usually people that have the resources but don't really have the knowledge when it comes to where do I invest, how do I start. And so they're usually the number one target of people who want to scam them for money. And so we try to teach them what to avoid and what to go for.
Fantastic. And obviously you are also an author of a book, which I will come back to a little while more. Now moving on to the red corner, Chevonne, passionate life coach, speaker, mental health advocate. I've heard you speak numerous times on Clubhouse. You're just so heartwarming. You're just so you exude that aura of just calmness and whatnot. Oh, you're gonna win this fight against Patrick on the blue corner.
With love and light.
Fantastic. Please tell us more about who you are and what you do.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me here, Andrew, and great to share the space with Patrick. Hi, everyone. My name is Chevonne. I will begin my introduction by saying that I'm a very passionate and active mental health advocate, and I bring that. I bring my lived experiences and what I've learned from my journey into all my professional and personal spaces. So I'm not sure how much briefly I can share in context based on the conversation, Andrew, in that aspect. Okay, so I've suffered depression, I've suffered from addictions, eating disorders, anxiety, and I'm also a suicide attempt survivor. So with my lived experience and having also sought professional help, I bring this into all my spaces as a transformational life coach, as a leadership facilitator, and as an active speaker, especially now on Clubhouse. In the leadership space, I come predominantly from the contact center and shared services industry. I've been in it for, well, it feels like forever, half my life, for over 19 years. And because of my passion for people and my own lived experiences from my mental health journey, I ventured and found my way into spaces and different various functions in corporate spaces. So for example, in quality assurance, in training, in facilitation, in coaching, in talent development, in HR. So if you notice, it's very people-centered spaces that I've been in. And in a nutshell, that's what I do.
Fantastic. And you know, hearing what the two of you do is really amazing, and the work that you guys put out. Obviously, I'm being biased because I know you beforehand, but I obviously urge our viewers and our audience here today to do check them out. First thing you can do is perhaps head to rejuvenatemy.com under the speaker segment. You will see their bios, and below the bios, you will be able to see how you can connect with them, be it on all the social media across the board, as well as places like LinkedIn, for example, right? Now, Patrick, moving to you very quickly and just setting the tone a little bit into what we want to kind of talk about today. You know, it has been almost 2 years since the pandemic has hit us. You know, Philippines, Malaysia, regardless of where you are, right? We are all technically under the same boat, under the same roof. You know, give us a little bit of an overview of how it has been like in Philippines, in the capital city, and perhaps also in where you are located.
Yeah, sure. In the Philippines, generally, I would say that when it comes to Filipinos facing adversity, we have, I don't know if you heard of this, but people have said that Filipinos are very resilient. We have withstood storms, we have withstood earthquakes and all kinds of natural calamities. But I think when COVID-19 hit, it was still a big shock for Filipinos, just like anyone else in the world. I I do believe that in some way or another, I'm really proud, you know, about our country, because, you know, even with all the challenges that they face both internally and externally, we found ways to really just thrive. Personally, for us, as a business in our organization, I would like to say that we were in a better off position, since both my businesses, both my professions, are both online. So we've been virtual professionals for the last 12 years. My personal business, Block 10 Creative Strategy, we've been fully online ever since. So we were actually, you know, in a business sense, we were in a very good spot at the beginning of, you know, the lockdowns, because our service was very much in demand, because everyone wanted to shift online, and so everyone was coming to us and saying, you know, we need help. We if you don't help us out, our business might shut down, and so on and so forth. On my day job with Team Positive, that's the name of the company that I work with the finance education, we're also a virtual team. So ever since 2015, we shifted to online, because we saw the opportunity there, you know, to save on real estate costs, hire people from all over the country, and it was good timing. But even then, it was still hard because I could really feel when lockdowns were announced that morale in the team really went down. During that time, I was also in charge of human resources, and so you could really feel the morale of people go down. There was a lot of anxiety. There was a lot of fear. Yes, many of us we were at home. We were safe at
Mhm.
home. We only have 3 staff that are inside the office, and the other 35 staff are work from home. But even then, I mean, it because like the COVID lockdown didn't just affect the workplace. It affected your every single aspect of your life. Where are you going to get groceries? How are you going to get to the mall? How are you going to pay for your electric bills and things like that?
Mhm.
So it was still pretty tough, but I would like to think that in some way or another we were able to thrive. Our sales actually went up really really significantly during the lockdowns, and we were able to take care of our staff. And so right now we have had zero resignations, and we have had zero retrenchments since the start of the lockdown.
That's amazing, Patrick. Uh, could you perhaps just share very quickly, just a broad overview, what were your, or rather, what is your daily cases like in the Philippines?
Right now we're doing a bit better, so we're at the better spectrum right now. We're currently at 5,000 to 6,000 a day, sometimes
Mm.
speaking a bit more. But at some level around, I think April or May was it, we were also hitting about 15,000 20,000 a day.
And your total population would be about
About 120 million as a whole,
120 million,
Philippines.
and you are hovering at 5 to 6,000 now, and you used to hit about between 15 to 20. Okay,
Yep.
Chevonne, Malaysia. How I'm judging by that you're not keen to.
I am keen to share. I'm not keen about the situation because
Mhm.
we're Malaysians, and for the Malaysians watching and listening in, we've been in some form of lockdown now here in Malaysia for, I want to say, close to 500 days, some form of lockdown since March 18 last year.
Yes.
And it's really only gotten really bad, especially this year, right? Gotten so bad to the point where we have a white flag movement. So Patrick, I'm not sure if you're aware, it's when people in our country, our people, when we physically raise a white flag outside of our homes because we don't have any food and we need help.
Oh
We don't have
wow.
any supplies to survive,
Mhm.
Mm.
and we need help. So that's what we call the white flag movement. And it's beyond trying times right now for everybody. And there was no way anybody could have prepared for this.
And I suppose just to put it into perspective for Patrick as well as our viewers who are not from Malaysia, Chevonne, what sort of numbers are we hitting daily now?
I believe as of today, we have 15,000 new cases.
Mm. And that's a new
15,000.
record, right?
It is, it is. It almost seems like we are championing in the wrong direction for the wrong things, but this is the current situation. We've not hit such high numbers until, I want to say, these past several months this year.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
So,
So
so
we
to
don't,
put in, yeah, so to put things into perspective, 120 million total population in the Philippines. I think Malaysia is about 30, 31 million, if I'm not wrong.
Mm.
And we are hitting almost the same numbers as the Philippines, and that is quite scary, to be honest. So in any case, let's move on from the numbers, and I perhaps want to start off with Chevonne. Uh, you know, mental wellness prior to the pandemic was something that I guess was spoken in very hushed tones, right? Not many people were very open to talk about it, and of course we also know, you know, in recent weeks and months, certain data has surfaced to show the severity of mental wellness as well. Uh, I guess, why is that so, or maybe what can we do?
Okay, so Andrew, I'm hearing two questions. One is, why is it the case whereby we're, as a nation, beginning to have more awareness about mental wellness now, and what can we do? Am I correct? Yeah. I would say, from my perspective, pre-COVID, there were still a lot of us advocating for mental wellness, mental health, but I believe that unless someone experiences it for themselves, or unless someone is open to being educated about it, there's going to be limitation as to what they will absorb, right? So like right now, in the case of COVID in Malaysia, everyone is experiencing it. And because we are each experiencing it ourselves in our own lives, in all areas, we are understanding the importance of mental wellness. What can we do? It really starts with us, from our individual lifestyles, right? And I'm starting with the fundamentals of, how we look after ourselves, how we care for ourselves. And it sounds really basic, especially when a lot of us are confined to our homes. We work from home, we live at home, we spend time with family at home, we do almost everything at home, except maybe when we have the luxury of going out to get groceries, right? So I feel that, we need to find little things, or even small spaces at home for ourselves, time for ourselves, so that we can just, take a breather, whether it's just going out for a walk. If you have a house with a garden, you're lucky. If you live in an apartment or a condo, then, put on your mask, go downstairs for a little bit of air and come back up, just for a different environment, different scenery.
Patrick, what about in the Philippines? Before, the pandemic hit early 2020, was mental health something that, was really, I guess, mainstream in a way?
I would probably say that it was an issue, but it wasn't mainstream. And what I mean about that is, I think for Filipinos, just like any part of the world, there's always this big stigma. Personally, for me, I actually, just like Chevonne, I also had bouts with mental challenges in the past. Not challenge, but mental issues. And I think, like for me specifically, that actually came out as obsessive compulsive disorder. So I'm actually clinically diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder, and I struggled that ever since childhood. But it wasn't until I was around 19 or 20 years old, where, funny enough, the story is that my wife told me before we got married, you have to, visit a psychiatrist and figure this out, because it was really a challenge for us, relationship wise. But when I actually went to a psychiatrist and I sought help, it was such a big help. It was such a big help. And even during this time, during the pandemic, we actually also sought help from a psycho counselor right after, I guess, the heat of the 2020 lockdowns. My wife and I sat down and said, let's talk to someone, let's get help. And thankfully, I actually was working with someone who is licensed in psycho counseling. And so we just took the time and we said, let's invest in it. So we took sessions and we sat down. That's not really normal in the Philippines, because there's a very big stigma where if you have a mental illness, then you're a lesser person in some way or another. And I think what we've really been trying to do is make people realize that, mental illness is just like physical illness. I mean, when you're sick, there's no shame in it. I mean, it's not something that you did. It's not your fault that you have mental illness. Many times it's external circumstances. It could be other things, but definitely not something that you have to be ashamed of. And so I think right now, with the pandemic coming out and people being more vocal and open about the burnout and the challenges that they face now with lockdowns and loss of business, loss of loved ones, grief, and all of that. If there's anything that has come out of this that is good, it's that people are more open now to that. And I think, I mean, set aside everything that has been happening, of course, I wouldn't wish the pandemic again upon the world. But in some way or another, I am grateful that when the pandemic happened, that shame and that stigma in some way started to minimize. And I'm looking forward to that day that that actually becomes a thing in history.
Chevonne, I want to bring to a point of what Patrick was saying, right? Stigma was mentioned a couple of times, and yesterday I had Chipwan Sarima Ibrahim, who is the patron of Miasa, on the show as well. And Miasa has this program where it's called Stigma Watch.
Mm.
Patrick was saying how people are now a little less judgmental, that there's less stigma in people who suffer from mental wellness. Is that the case in Malaysia, Chevonne? Do you see a shift ever since the pandemic, especially as we are coming towards 2021, or do you still think that people are still hiding behind an invisible shield and not let people know about their problems, right? Like, in fact, in Patrick's case, where he and the wife went for counseling in that sense, I don't know, maybe my circle of people I know is too small. Are things like that happening in Malaysia? Are they seeking help? I know that the hotline numbers are going off the roof, in terms of the numbers, but what about that stigma?
So if I go back to my journey 22 years ago, which is when I first experienced mental health conditions, until now, it is still a stigma. However, it is getting a little better. Just bear in mind, we're talking about 22 years here. That's a long span of time, a very, very long span. What I'm noticing now more is that people are slowly starting to voice it. However, there are many, I feel, who are maybe not sure. They're not sure what is happening with themselves even to be able to express it, or they could be afraid. Because it's fear of judgment, right? When you share with somebody, you don't know how somebody is going to respond. And coming to that, so one of the reasons why you find me so active on Clubhouse, Andrew, is because I go into, I spend a lot of times in a lot of the rooms, right? Not just to create that mental health awareness, but more importantly, to create that safe space for people to be able to share. Knowing that I can come into this room, I can really speak from my heart, and no one here is going to judge me, especially not the moderators in the rooms, which is why the moderators play an extremely important role, right? There's a responsibility. So that's one of the many reasons I do so, purely based on Clubhouse, which is my daily experience. I am seeing a shift. Off Clubhouse, it's still, it is still a stigma. And I too, like Patrick, hope that one day it will no longer be a stigma and we can all have open conversations like this and talk about, hey, this is my counseling experience. How was yours, Patrick? What was your journey like? It should be normalized as that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that completely. Just to add on to that, Andrew, I mean, even when we posted, I remember about a month after our counseling session with my wife, we posted it on our social media accounts, and even at that point we weren't sure. It's like, should we post it? Should we just keep it to ourselves? And true enough, I mean, I won't name names, but there were definitely people who were like, I don't think you should post that. I think you should just keep that private. And I just had to ask. It's like, I mean, open conversation, civil discourse, ask the person, engage with them. What makes you feel that way? I mean, what are the, the principles behind that, where you should hide, mental challenges? And true enough, out of like a few of them, many of them did not have a reason. It's just like, many of them were just saying, it's like, because that's how it's supposed to be. And, when you would ask them again, it's like, what makes you say that that's how it's supposed to be? Many times there's really just no reason. I think it's just for the longest time it's been, swept under a rug, hidden behind a shelf.
Yeah.
But it really helps when you're open, because like there were in the same way that there were people who would tell us, this is supposed to be private and things like that. There was like a disproportionately bigger amount of people that said, thank you so much for opening that up. I feel that I'm no longer alone. To see someone like you who like, for I guess for the context for some people here, that I mean, in the Philippines, when you have like a personal brand and when you speak in front of people expect that you're the kind of person that has everything figured out. And when we tell them, it's like, no, 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 we're also learning just like you, we're also struggling just like you, and we're also trying our best to get over the hump, so to speak, with this pandemic. And any single challenge that you face, it makes people realize that for the longest time they thought that there were such thing as perfect people. But all of a sudden they realize that if anyone and everyone who is on the stage and talking about mental wellness, talking about burnout, and actually wrote a book, which I think Andrew will get to that a bit later, is actually struggling with that, then I can struggle with it too, and be honest with myself. And I think the embracing of that challenge, and that stopping the denial, I think, is the biggest step for people, because it just brings so much liberty to you personally when you just say that I need help, that I don't have everything figured out.
Yeah, that's very true, Patrick. Chevonne, since we are then moving towards working from home, although we touched upon it a little while ago, lack of human interaction, loneliness, and even to some, it's burnout, because apparently they tend to work more and longer hours when at home, right? Because there's just no differentiation between the bedroom and the work table, the kitchen and the workspace, the living room and the space where you are actually working. I guess, how can we overcome this as the individual, him or herself?
So that's a really good question. From a burnout perspective, one way I would suggest, because it's something I practiced myself, is when it comes to work, setting a boundary. And that's going to be so difficult. It's going to feel so uncomfortable, but it's going to be so necessary. So when all of us used to work in the office, let's just say it's a 9 to 5 job, right? When we're done with work at 5, we physically walk to a door, say goodbye, we walk out. At home, there is no door we're walking out to unless we're going to our main door, right? So that literally means telling people, hey, I'm done for the day, and making sure you are done for the day. Don't touch your laptop. And if you do, don't touch it for work-related things. That's the challenge, because sometimes, you might have a peer or a teammate, or maybe even sometimes a boss who messages you around 7 p.m. and says, hey, I'm really sorry, I need a report urgently. And you're thinking to yourself, my boss is really nice, I'll do it this one time. That one time could turn out to be a forever time.
That'll be me. Sorry, guys.
I've been there too, but it's just knowing the balance of when to say, hey, I'm really sorry, now it's dinner time, whether you're by yourself, whether you're having dinner with your family. I think people's personal time, from an employer's perspective, I think people's personal time should be respected, needs to be respected, even though we're not physically in an office space anymore.
Patrick, your thoughts? And obviously when we talk about burnout, you have a book about that. So perhaps you can segue towards the book as well.
Yeah. I was just reading my wife's comment. She just said, Chevonne, she totally agrees with you, boundaries.
I
So
like
that's, yeah. That's her way of saying that, Patrick, listen to Chevonne. No, honestly, I guess touching a little bit on my book as well, and I say this openly. I have a book called Break, Conquering Burnout with Sabbath Rest. And even in my book, I'm very honest. I tell people I am the king of burnout, not because I have mastered it, but because I am so good at burning out. I think that comes with, for the longest time, I've been an entrepreneur. And I think with entrepreneurs, especially with young entrepreneurs, because I started at a very early age. I started at the age of 18. All the passion, all the excitement, you love what you do. I honestly, I love what I do so much. But I think sometimes the challenge there is when you love something so much that you forget boundaries, just like what Chevonne said. And that resonates with me because I've made that mistakes so many times where yes, you want to give everything that you have to the profession that you're part of, but also realizing that you are more than just your profession, that you're more than just your career. Especially right now, I am a father of two. I have one daughter who is 8 years old and one who just turned 2 last May. You're realizing that these little human beings also need time, and that they also have to be a part of your life. And for the longest time, because we're work from home professionals, and it's so funny how so many people tell us we would love to have a profession like yours, and I'm like, no, you don't. Because I think when people see work from home, when they see digital nomads, when they see people who can set up an office in their home, they see the good things, right? And I think that's amazing. I'm grateful for that I get to work a job where I don't have to commute, that I can just step out of my little office and play with my kids. But there are days where the balance, so to speak, is a challenge. And I think that's really a challenge also for us, because like our business, we work with people in companies from different time zones. So we have clients in the United States, we have clients in Poland, we have clients in Australia. So our time zones are all over the place. And so sometimes being, so strict about 9 to 5 can be a challenge. But I think one little tidbit that I would love to share for everyone is just this one word: intentionality. Let's say, for example, you're a business owner and you really have to work at like 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. Or let's say, for example, you're a frontliner and you're a medical professional. I don't have a 9 to 5 because I have to work all day inside, in the emergency room or in the medical facility I'm working at. I think intentionality is also so helpful, because one thing that I always remind myself is that if it's not on my calendar, it's probably not going to happen. And so for the longest time, I used to, and I'm sure that many people do this, you schedule, if you're in some way or another, you have a productivity hack or a productivity routine, that you schedule things, you put things in your calendar, you put meetings in your calendar, you put tasks in your calendar. When you have obviously if you have a speaking engagement like this, it's in my calendar. But in the early stages, when we were still young as a family, we only had one daughter and I had a wife. All of a sudden it's not just about you anymore. You need to talk to someone. I'm an introvert. I can go one whole day without speaking, but then I'm married to an extrovert who loves to talk, and so I also have to converse with her. I had to be very intentional. And so I think one small change that I did was I just had to put family time inside my calendar. And so I made a decision. It's like, I'm going to start really small. Let's just start with 2-hour blocks, 2 or 3 2-hour blocks every single time, every single week. A Wednesday night, a Friday night, and a Saturday night where it's just family. No phones, no internet connections, no work calls. Work calls will always be there, but you don't answer them anymore. And that did so much for us. It started small. And I think also just giving each other grace, because there will be times that will have to you will have to reschedule. It's like if for instance, Wednesday night you already have dinner plans with the family. Pre-pandemic, let's go out, have dinner somewhere, go to the beach, because we live close to the beach, so we can just drive 20 minutes and then come back after. But then all of a sudden the client calls and says, we have an urgent situation, the website just went down. And so it's the grace to say, can we reschedule? and actually doing that rescheduling. Let's move it to Friday night instead, or Sunday morning if you want to. So giving yourself grace and not beating yourself up so much, because the worst thing to do when you drop the ball in terms of intentionality is to not pick up the ball. So reminding yourself that the ball, there is no cost to picking up that ball. And you have to pick, because if you don't pick up the ball, then the ball will, never roll again.
I like that.
Wow. Wow.
Could I add on to something that Patrick has shared?
Oh, yes, please, Chevonne.
Intentionality, yes, for sure. Everything Patrick said, I echo it full-heartedly. Consistency is another one. The scheduling is a fantastic idea, Patrick, because when you work with different time zones, and especially when they have visibility to your calendars, it's needed.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. When I was supporting a startup company last year, and we were supporting literally different countries across the globe, I would schedule in my lunchtime, my coffee time, and I would be consistent. And because we would have our team chats, right? I would switch it to away or offline. I would make sure that that was consistent. And if someone were to message me on a lunch break, I would be mindful to not respond because it's my lunch break. So I too need to keep to that consistency, and slowly people started doing it themselves as well. So it really can start, and it does start with one person, and then other people start doing it, and then everybody has this, respect and understanding that, hey, check my schedule, check my calendar, because this is when I'm available, this is when I'm not.
Nice.
Yeah.
Before we move on to the next segment, I suppose there is a question from the audience, and it's in the chat box that I'm looking at right now. It's actually from a Julia. It says here, "Hi, my question to Chevonne is, how do you take those negative experiences and able to talk about those experiences as a life coach speaker? Would love to know more."
I'm pausing. I'm just going to take a breath. Yeah. Would I be correct to say that this is my past experience?
Yeah, I suppose so, because it says their negative experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know what it felt like to be in that place, and call it divine intervention, if you will. 22 years later, I'm still here with all of you, right? And I believe that there is a reason for that. And how do I change the negative is I bring my personal experience into all the spaces I go into intentionally, so that other people know that they are not alone. So one of the things I used to do as a trainer and as a facilitator before at work was in a regular, whether it's a classroom setting or an online setting, usually when you see someone fidgeting, the usual conception or the typical conception is, that, oh, this person is not paying attention. I don't see things that way. I see things as, I look at how tense the person appears. I also look at how the person is breathing. That's how I see things and how I view things. So the questions I would ask the person will be very different, and it helps them. So I didn't realize it then, but I had already started creating that safe space for people. So long story short, I am now doing my best to be that person I would have loved to have for myself back then. I hope that answers your question, Julia. Thank you.
Thank you, Chevonne. And in fact, as we move on, there is a comment, not so much of a question, but it's actually from Tian Hao Eng. I'm sorry, I can't figure out if it's he or she, but Tian Hao Eng said this: "OMG, Chevonne, I like the way you speak so confidently and being so polite."
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Patrick, now you mentioned you were in HR in your day job, and you saw how people were suffering and whatnot. So I guess the very straightforward question to ask you is, as employers, what can we do to reduce or mitigate this? Like how do employers keep teams motivated with the reduced human interaction, the human bonding? We talk about the secret breaks. We talk about the the chat by the pantry, by the water cooler and stuff like that, right? I mean, there's absolutely no way to replicate that experience or that 3, 5, 10 minutes break that you kind of like steal off your work.
Yeah, that's very true. I agree with that completely. There is definitely no way to in a virtual setting to match that. But I think in some level or another, there is a way to, in some way, or I mean, mimic that. Like, I guess I can speak from our experience during the start of the pandemic. Definitely, just going back to what I shared earlier, we kind of felt that team morale was going down. And so one of the things that we did was we implemented what we call Motivation Mondays in our company. So it's a quick 20-30 minute call at the start of the week where it's either myself or our CEO, Chinkitan, or our chief technology officer, basically anyone from C-level, uh, will share a quick motivation for everyone. And it's not, we started off with having it as a non-work related motivation. So it was mostly towards, personal growth, being open and honest with each other. I remember one time or twice, I think even, we had a motivation Monday where no one really shared. It's like, specifically, like, we didn't have like a specific topic. We just asked everyone, like, how are you doing? What are the challenges that you're going through right now? And we left that meeting, and I say this because our staff actually messaged us and sent, I mean, they basically expressed to us that really helped. That's exactly what I needed today. And so those many times that we, just set aside, agenda and meeting minutes and all of that to just build, that level of care. I think what really came out of that, it wasn't really so much the meeting per se, or wasn't even the name. I know that the name sounds catchy, Motivation Monday, and people have said that every time I share that. But I think what the secret sauce to that really was empathy, where we just honestly, I mean, C-level staff, our core team, we really just cared about our people. We really felt for them. We were like, we remember one time we were having the core meeting, which is every Friday afternoon. And that core meeting that we had before we implemented Motivation Monday, it was a spur of the moment thing. We were just asking each other a question. How's JP? How's Aldrich? How's Christine? And how's Christopher? We have 2 Chris's in the team. But basically we were just talking about that. We were asking each other. It's like, and then I remember our CEO would just tell us, it's like, why don't we ask them? Why don't we have a meeting on Monday and just ask them how they're doing? And what that really spoke was just, as our CEO, I mean, and I really honor our CEO. He really cares about our people. And I think as leaders, that there's nothing that can replace authentic empathy. I mean, you can put a catchy name to a meeting. You can have an amazing program. You can create a nice poster out of it. You can set a budget for it. But if you don't really care about your staff, then it's really not going to do anything. So I think now I'm realizing a little bit more and more that it was something that was already there from the beginning. And so I think as leaders, if there are leaders listening to this, I think the most important question we need to ask ourselves, if we want our teams to, stay, motivated, and even in some way or another, avoid some level of burnout, you really have to care about your people. Because if you don't, then they're just going to become another asset to the company.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's very right what you said. A company's greatest asset is actually the employees, right?
Very true, 100%.
Chevonne, sorry, you wanted to chime in?
No, I was going to say absolutely. Emotional check-in, right, Patrick? By asking and really caring. I really, really love that. I think a lot of organizations should practice exactly that. I know a lot of organizations from middle management to C-suite level, they do care. They really do care. They just maybe don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
In Asia, we're Asians, and I'm speaking as an Asian, right? When you ask somebody, hey, how are you? The typical 4 responses we're probably always going to get is okay, fine, good, so, or busy. Standard responses, right? And sometimes we just leave it there. And when the person says, oh, I'm okay. Usually when someone says okay, we'll ignore it or we'll ask the person, why just okay? Which makes it seem like as if okay isn't good enough, but good enough for what? Right? And if we know that someone, everyone's got a pattern, everyone's got a trend. If someone is an extrovert and all of a sudden now at work, they have become more quiet, check in on them, ask them, hey, is everything okay? How's home? How's your health? Are you sleeping well? Right? People could be experiencing depression and anxiety and not even be aware of it and call it stress. Right? So many a times we don't realize what's going on, but just check in. When people feel that we are cared for, we invest more into our work. We begin to care more about our work. We begin to be more passionate and motivated about our work.
That's true. I was going to move into the next question, but I think that there is another question here on the chat box that would probably relate to the question that I was going to ask. This is from Eugene, not specific to anyone, but it basically asks, how would you advise a young employee to manage and handle expectations from employers in this pandemic to ensure that it will not affect their mental health in a negative way? Patrick, maybe you want to take a jab at it. So it kind of segues to my question as well, in terms of, how can you prepare youths today to adapt to the new work culture? How do we get used to embrace this change, I suppose,
I think I would refer to a management consultant I really follow. His name is Patrick Lencioni. He's the author of The Advantage and a lot of amazing management books. He has a framework called the 5 dysfunctions of team, which kind of leads towards how to fix those dysfunctions. The first dysfunction, I think, that is very crucial for any organization, any company, is the lack of trust. He always speaks of that. That's always number one. When an organization or a team, for that matter, has no mutual trust with each other, it creates a lot of office politics. And we all know where this is going. With office politics comes, I can't open up. I can't be honest about how I really feel. If I don't agree with the idea or if I'm having a bad day, I can't say anything at work. That's usually what happens when you have office politics. And he shares pretty straightforward. And I've seen this as well. I've applied this into the organizations that we've helped. Because like aside from Team Positive, we also try to help other organizations to build good work cultures for virtual teams. One of the first things that we really recommend and we try to build programs around is allowing for more vulnerability. Being vulnerable about how you truly feel. And I think it really has to start, especially with an Asian culture, because we are a very, majority anyways, we're a very non-confrontational culture when it comes to, top level going down and going up. I think it's the other way around, going up rather, where it's easy for bosses and managers to communicate what needs to happen. But there's very little feedback, from the bottom of the hierarchy going up. And sometimes we feel that that's the case because it would be disrespectful to question or to be honest or to be vocal about disagreements and conflicts that you might have. Of course, there has to be that level of respect as well, which I think is another topic for another day. But when you're vulnerable and you're honest about how you truly feel, 2 things could happen. Number one, you could, it could go completely, south. And I'll probably start with the bad news first, and I'll come back to a bit later. You could go south, and you could lose your job because your boss wasn't, so happy about it, and calls you out, and you either get demoted or you get transferred to another department. That's the worst thing that could happen. The good thing that could happen is your boss could probably respond and say, thank you for sharing that. It actually gives me so much more perspective. And now I know what we can do. Because like it's that feedback that actually, because like and I always say this to my staff as well. Um, as the as a leader of this organization, I don't see everything. I don't see the day-to-day things that you go through. Like one department that's under my leadership is the customer service department, and I don't see all the complaints that they get. I don't see all the calls that they get where people are shouting at them for delayed orders because of boundary controls during the pandemic. And I don't see that, and I tell them, it's like you have to communicate it to me, because like I will never know unless you never tell me. So on the good side, when you tell your boss that, you're actually doing them a very big favor, and they will be so grateful about it. Going back to the bad news again, because I think there's also some good news still attached to that. If you get transferred to another department because you were serving a boss who did not appreciate the vulnerability, I think you just save yourself from years of suffering. Because one thing I always teach towards people who are under leadership is, you deserve in some level or another a boss who actually wants to listen to you. And do not stop until you find a boss, a company that does that. Because if you can't find that, then you will, I mean, to be honest, burnout will become a part of your life. It will become natural. But the wonderful thing is, not all bosses are like that, not all companies are like that. I would even go as far to say that there are more companies out there and more bosses out there, more mentors out there that would actually love to listen. But the thing is, because we're so caught up with, I mean, what if they get offended? What if they don't like my ideas? Then we actually lose that challenge. So I guess the only thing I would say is, what do you have to lose in that sense?
Yeah. Chevonne, what would be your one piece of advice to youths who are, moving towards uncharted territory? And in fact, it's not just for youth, right? It's for anyone out there. What do you have to say?
So my one piece would be, or my one takeaway for everybody would be, communication skills are more crucial than we could have ever imagined, right? From asking questions. So whether you're a youth, whether you're not a youth, when you're communicating with someone, the fact is that when we don't ask questions to get a better understanding or learn, we're assuming, full stop. There is no other way around it. When we don't ask, we won't know, so we're assuming. We're working based on assumptions. And when both parties communicate, whether it's employees, whether it's employers, really listen to each other. Because one of the things that Patrick basically spoke about, a chunk of what Patrick spoke about, is also a part of safe space in a workplace, right? And that's also why I'm very passionate about it, because the examples he gave was basically about listening to a person. Ask a question when you're not sure, so you get clarity. So if you're not sure if your bosses or teammates' expectations, ask, right? And when someone is speaking, listen. Don't interrupt them. Don't jump in and give your thoughts, just for the sake of responding. Really listen to what they're saying. That would be my key tip, my key takeaway for everybody.
Fantastic. So Patrick, just to share, I've shared the link on Amazon to if anyone is interested to check out the book that you were talking about, The Advantage by Patrick Lencioni. So it's on the chat box. So I hope our audience and viewers would get to check that book out. And in fact, later on, what you need to do is also to share how we can get a copy of your book. Whether it's, pass that to me, and then I will get those things done in terms of how to get them. Now, just to wrap things up very quickly, Chevonne, I'll probably start with you. You obviously are active on Clubhouse. How can people find you? What are the kind of rooms you're in? What kind of rooms you moderate? And what days are those? If you can remember off the top of your head, please share.
Okay, so my name on Clubhouse is Chevonne Hassan, which is my name. I am in many rooms every day. However, there are a few regular rooms that I am in consistently. One of it is Solarist Live Studio, where two of my coach friends and I co-founded the club on Clubhouse. The other one is Being Curious and Fearless. The other one is Eight Dragons, among the many other rooms and communities I'm in. These are the three you can definitely find me in every week, for sure.
Fantastic. And Patrick, not just Clubhouse, you have a podcast as well. Please share with our audience.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't even remember my Clubhouse username. It's probably Patrick Mabilog or something. I try to join as much as possible the rooms that obviously the three of us have met. But I guess speaking more towards the podcast, because that's really been a big hobby for me. Just the disclaimer, it is not a professional thing. I'm not making any money out of that. I just love doing it because I just love speaking about the topic that I talk about. So yeah, I mean, the name of the podcast is Workaholic with Kiko Mabilog. Kiko is my nickname, where I talk about how to escape burnout and experience growth in your career. And so I talk about topics like passion, how to become more productive at work, finding your strengths, your gift, and then talk a little bit as well about toxic work cultures and how to avoid that, because that's really something that I hope changes. Just one last statistic I want to share that always just jumps out of my heart. There's this statistic by Gallup that says that 85% of people feel disengaged at work. And what that tells you is that 85% of the world, 85% of professionals walk into a job that does not resonate with them. And that eats me every single day, because I don't think that's what work's supposed to be about. Work's supposed to be exciting. It's supposed to be something that you love. It's something that's supposed to bring you excitement. It's the kind of job that, honestly, like what Chevonne was talking about earlier, it's a job that when you hit retirement, it actually bums you out. It's like, oh man, I really don't want to retire. That's what I want to see happen. And little by little, people hopefully are listening. I now have one listener, Chevonne. Thank you so much for adding to the short list. But that is my goal with the podcast. So if you want to find an area, or if you're looking for somewhere or another to find meaning and purpose in your career, then probably check out my podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere else that you listen to podcasts.
Fantastic, Patrick.
Awesome.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, yes, Chevonne.
Sorry, could I just add one more quick thing on the mental wellness perspective, if that's okay?
Yes, sure.
For everyone who's watching and who's listening in, please don't be afraid to ask for help. Please don't be afraid to get professional help. I'm still going for therapy, and it is one of the best things I've ever done for myself. It helps you understand yourself better. It helps you with personal growth. It helps you heal from any trauma you're not even aware of. It is okay to not be okay, and be open to receiving that help.
Great.
Thank you so
I
much.
mean, that was wonderful to really wrap the session up, Chevonne. Again, on behalf of the team in Rejuvenate Edition 2, I would like to say a big thank you to Chevonne, salamat to Patrick, for coming on board, spending your evening with us, with the audience, and to share and to share so much of raw stories and such genuine, it's just something that even though we are so far away, right? I truly feel it, even if we are behind screens and behind lenses and whatnot. And I hope our viewers really get to, take something out of it. If you want to rewatch the session again, wait a couple of minutes after this broadcast, and we will have it on the website, and you can watch it and rewatch it again. Take down notes if you want to. If you have missed out on Chevonne, on Patrick's handles or whatever it is, get in touch with them. Like I said, it's all available on rejuvenatemy.com. And once again, thank you very much. And clear winner here. It's the red and the blue corner, definitely.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much, Andrew.
With that, I bid you all farewell. Stay well, stay safe, and we will definitely want you back in future editions of Rejuvenate.
I'd love that. Thank you.
Sounds good.
All right. Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
See
Bye,
ya.
Andrew. Bye, Patrick.